Yo, what's up, guys, and welcome to Week 4 Power Rankings. I am joined today by Hutch,
Hello, guys.
and as usual, I am Ian. So why don't we just jump right into our picks? We both have placed a master at number 14. He did get 6-0'd this week by Susie's disgusting stall, but he is currently the only team with 4 losses. Everyone else has at least one win, so that's got to say something about how he's been playing so far. It hasn't been great for him yet. Hasn't really brought much to deal with his matchups that have been problematic. He didn't bring any real breakers this week to deal with Susie's Alamamola and Venusaur. It was just pretty much a loss right from turn one. He didn't have anything to deal with it, so that's why he's down here.
Yeah, he just didn't play well. I play test with Susie, and if the master had really thought about the prep, he could have beat Susie kind of easily because I beat Susie in every single play test. If he brings just like an offensive team, he didn't see it, and you got to bring hyper offense against Susie's team just because it's so bulky, and yeah, you can't let yourself get stalled down like that. You got to have prep accordingly. And Demaster's got a decent team. He's got a lot of mons that work really well together. It's just he's got to pick up the wins, and I think the biggest thing that really hurt him this week was team building and not having the necessary mons to get through Susie's team.
Yeah, especially considering how hyper offensive his team naturally is. So
Yeah.
it definitely was weird to see him bring some kind of balance style thing. But next up, at number 13, I have Brad in the St. Louis Summerots, and he is having a really rough season to say the least. 1-3. That is definitely a shock to see, especially with how good his team is. But he just hasn't been playing it well. He's been playing really passively with Mandibuzz and Tangrowth mainly. He hasn't really been piling on the offensive pressure like Coco allows him to do, and he's been letting his Coco get chipped down too quickly, so it's not putting in all the work that it can be during his games. He actually lost to Malone this week, which is why I have him a little bit higher, so he has dropped quite substantially.
Yeah, so I get the reasoning, but I have Malone um above Brad this time because I just figure or below, but Malone just has not been playing as good as Brad in my opinion. Um, I'm pretty sure Malone, or they have like the same differential. Yeah, they have the same differential. So if you want to look at from a statistics perspective, they're on par. But I just feel like Brad's team is a little bit better, like well thought out. He doesn't have a lot of overlap, so he's got more hope for the future. I feel. It's just in this week, I honestly am not surprised that Brad lost. He lost to Malone last season, so maybe that's gonna be a recurring theme. But yeah, Malone really did play well in this match, which prevents him from being the 14th spot. Because if he loses this match, he would be the 14th spot in my opinion. And it's nice to see him get a win. So hopefully we can see Malone climbing up in the ranks.
Yeah, I definitely did decide to put Malone a bit higher just because he beat Brad. Obviously, beating the person is going to give you a slight edge over them, in my opinion. And also, it's just the quality of wins. Brad's only win is against Damasa, which is the 14th spot. Malone's win against is Brad, which is currently 13th spot, but is like historically been a really good coach. So I did decide to value Brad as a more impressive win overall, regardless of his current performance. So that's why Malone is a bit higher, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. So I have Brad at number 12, and this has been a very uncharacteristic season. If you told me going into this season that Brad was going to be 1-3 with a -6 heading into week 5, I would say you're absolutely insane. But here we are. He's got a great team, which is surprising. Like his team was the highest rated in terms of like grades and stuff like that. And it's just he's not been playing at the caliber that I think he needs to play at because I think it comes down to his play style is what it boils down to. His play style is too predictable in my opinion. He brings a lot of standard stuff and doesn't really mix it up, which is really hurting him because after coaches have played him for a while, um, like if you look at his losses, Malone, they've both been there since season one. You got against Cam, which or not against Cam, against TCP. They've played like 3 or 4 times, And you have a loss against Susie, which Susie has also played Brad a fair amount of times. So I think Brad needs to really mix up his play style because he's getting predictable and it's really costing him in some of these matches. And he said he wants to change his play style, so he changed up his team. So hopefully we can see it change it for the better.
Yeah, it's also wild to think that back in season 3 when he drafted his kind of main team, he still performed better up until this point. He was, I believe, 3-1 at that point. So, like, it's definitely crazy to see just how far he's dropped off this season, honestly. And speaking of dropping off, we have TCP, who is also having an uncharacteristically bad season. Another semi-finalist from last season, and is now also 1-3. This week he lost to who was it?
Cody.
He lost to Cody, so it wasn't that bad of a loss. Cody's currently undefeated, so it's not a terrible loss, but TCP's got to step it up. His draft isn't quite as good as it was last season, but it's also been his prep. His prep versus Brad last week was really good, but outside of that, it's been not really working to the fullest. He brought a Jax Button and Reggie Steele to get into Zygarde, which seemed good, but it was choice banded, so he didn't really get much out of that prep. So it's just like little things like that he's not capitalizing on his unique ideas to the fullest. That's I feel has kind of been bringing him down this season.
Yeah, it's really, really weird to think that I would be putting the coach with the most wins in ASL history and the coach who just won season 4 back to back in the first slide. That's insane to think. It's just TCP has not been playing at the level that we've seen him play in the past. He's played some tough opponents, some tougher than others, but week 2 he lost to Cam, which is he even said in his video, he said that's a game he should have won. But he lost to Cody as well. So, I mean, he's losing to better coaches. Like, he's losing. Every game that he's lost has been to a winning coach. Cam is 2-2. I am 3-3. And Cody's 4-0. So, it's not terrible. But you got to find the wins. And especially as a Season 4 champion, you'd assume that you have a grasp on the game. And TCP is a great coach. He's just got to really figure it out with his team because it's very, very different than what he used last season. Last season was like a bulky offense, and this season he's using a really hyper offense. So I think he just needs to adjust to the play style, and then he can make a nice little deep playoff run at the end of the season.
I will note that he's also kind of working against his team in a sense. Like he said, it's kind of a more hyper-offensive team, but he's been bringing a Stolia kind of team a lot. He's been bringing double Reggies, defensive, like trapping Zygarde and stuff like that. So he's definitely been bringing really bulky defensive team, utilizing his lower tier picks. So his higher tier picks aren't getting the same kind of spotlight. And obviously, if you're bringing lower tier picks rather than higher tier picks, you're not going to be succeeding as much because your team's just weaker overall. But anyway, going on to number 10, we both have Cam and the Washington Whalers. Why don't you talk about that?
All right, so I got Cam down here, and it sucked to see Cam lose this week because I'm really rooting for Cam to make a nice playoff run. And he got, to be honest, destroyed by Shadow. Shadow made absolutely fantastic plays in that match. And yeah, just Cam was not making the necessary doubles to try and grab momentum in the match. It's kind of like he was just playing into Shadow's hand. And he's still at a 2-2 record, so not bad. So I'm not going to put him that far down. But it's just like he never had any grasp of momentum in the game. And momentum is everything. Unless you're playing stall, but his team is not stall. It's like balanced. So you need to grab momentum and you need to make doubles when your back's up against the wall. And I just never really saw him making the doubles, and Shadow just played the game phenomenally.
Yeah, for sure. There were a lot of really dominative wins this week, but with that being said, Cam still felt like probably one of the worst ones. He definitely didn't really feel like he knew what he was doing at all that game, which is more characteristic of his last season run than it has been from what he's been showing this season, which is a shame to see. And while I don't think he necessarily deserves 10th by a long shot, it's by a significant enough standard that all the teams above him do deserve to be above him. It's definitely quite close between like the next 4 or 5 teams, but Cam just kind of had the worst loss of them all and has the least impressive wins, arguably. So I decided to put him at number 10. At number 9, we have Shadow, and he's on the flip side of this. He played really well against Cam, and he also played really well against you, so he's definitely picked it up since week 3. He's been going on an absolute tear, to say the least, putting up like massive upsets, phenomenal play and prep. So it's definitely interesting to see how he's evolved since last season and see if he can maybe make a playoff push this season.
Yeah. So I also have Shadow at number 9. I really, really wanted to put him higher, but just some other coaches had some bigger wins this week. But Shadow is just playing fantastic, and honestly, if he wins his next 2 weeks, I don't think there's any reason why he isn't in green or yellow, because his next 2 weeks are against Brad and Cody, which those are huge games for him. And Shadow's just playing really well. He started off 0-2, so not that great, but then he played a very close game against me where he won 1-0, and then he just 5-0'd Cam, and he did everything right in that game. And that's a lot of momentum going into these next couple of games. If he can pick up a nice win over Brad, there's a real chance that he can go in and beat Cody and take or give Cody his first loss of the season. So I'm really hopeful for Shadow at this point. It's just I feel the people above him had a little bit better wins this week in terms of strength of schedule.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. For example, at number 8, we both have Keister, and Keister happened to be AZ, which was number 3rd and 4th last week. So definitely a really big win. AZ had crazy good differential coming into this. He was getting 5-0s, 4-0s the entire time. And it's now that he's getting, I believe, his second loss, is it? Second loss. But Keister played really well overall. He played his Pelipper quite phenomenally with the Toxic Whirlpool stall. There was a lot of hacks on both sides, arguably favoring Keister overall, but in the end, he still played really well to get quite a dominative 5-0 victory. Although that score is somewhat deceptive because Aerodactyl definitely could have swept in the end had he gotten a slightly higher roll on the Jirachi. But regardless, definitely really well played. It's just that, once again, coaches above him have had better wins, so they deserve the higher spots.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. He uses Pelipper absolutely fantastically. That set was ingenious. It rarely died, and I think it got like 2 kills. So it played really, really well. And then after that, he just came in with a couple other mons and really just cleaned it up. And a big 5-0. That's what I'm saying. Shadow 5-0ing Cam isn't as big as Keister 5-0ing AZ, in my opinion, just because AZ has a little bit better of a roster and it's a little bit harder to break through. So Keister played really, really well this week, and most people didn't have much like hopes for Keister coming into the season, but he's really performing very well. He got a win this week, and back in week 2, I believe. Week one. Week 1, he had a big win over Ian. So he's getting big wins. It's just he needs to stop being streaky. He's at 2-2 right now, and maybe you can get like a little win streak and then really start solidifying his spot.
Yeah, for sure. And at number 7, we have a difference of opinion. You have Ian and I have TJ. Why don't you talk about why you placed Ian here?
Alright, so I put Ian down here just because I didn't want to put him over TJ, just because TJ, I feel like I can't really fault Ian that much for losing the game, because Dragon Dance, Special Attacking Megazard Y is not really something you prep for. I can't really fault him for that, but they were both 2-0 losses, and it's really hard to differentiate between the two. But, I just put Ian down there because, just basically because TJ has a little bit better of a differential. TJ has a +2 and Ian has a -2. And as we saw last season, differential starts becoming very, very important. That's really the only reason there. They both lost by the same thing this week. They have the same record, and just comes down to differential, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. I had TJ here. They both had pretty much the same quality of loss as well, gotta say, but I think that Ian's loss was arguably more justified. Like you said, Dragon Dance Special Charizard is not something that you're really going to expect. I think you probably should have prepped for it a little bit better than you did. Should have brought a Choice Scarfer just in case for not only the Charizard but other things on your team, like Keldeo or whatever. But I felt like TJ had less excuses to lose that game other than just his opponent being good. TJ's prep was apparently he prepped like 5, 6 different teams, and honestly, it didn't really show. His prep didn't really seem all that great. For example, his Gorgeist was Shadow Sneak Rocky Helmet, I presume for Kangaskhan or something, but a Culver Berry set would have been much more effective in stopping Deoxys' speed and also would have been able to take on something like Incineroar a little bit better. And other stuff just seemed rather vanilla, so I felt like he had less of an excuse to lose that game. It just felt like he kind of was losing most of the game. He did play fairly well, but I felt like Ian was a more justifiable loss. Anyway, at number 6, you've got TJ, so why don't you talk about that?
Alright, so like I said, basically same losses. Just TJ, towards the end of the game, it felt like he had a little bit more of a chance to win. You would have had to absolutely choke and have swapped out and into something on a surf from you. So that was a little bit better. And just because Ian didn't pack surf on his Finny, and that's the reason that he lost, I just feel like not running a stab move, like surf on Finny, like I can get why he didn't run it, but running it makes a lot of sense, and just one move was the difference between him winning and losing. So I just felt like TJ had better prep going into it, kind of, sort of. But yeah, it's kind of just indifferent between the two, honestly.
Yeah, they're both completely comparable teams. I did decide to put Ian above because, like I said before, a more justifiable loss. I wouldn't have run Surf on the Finny in a lot of cases. He did run Trick on it, so he really didn't have room for Surf. He was obviously going to want Defog to deal with your Acid Stack. And then Ice Beam makes sense for Zygarde. I would run Moonblast instead, but that's beside the point. So I can understand why he didn't run it, and I can also understand why he didn't run any Scarfers. I would have run a Scarf up personally, or something else to deal with the Charizard, but I also lost you in the mock. It was just a really good set and one that was completely oddball, so don't blame him that much for losing. But at number 5, I have AZ and you have Susie here. Why don't you talk about why you place Susie down at 5?
Alright, so I put Susie down at 5 because, like we said with the Masters analysis, it was a pretty terrible 6-0. It's not really fun to watch, and Susie really didn't have to try, honestly. He swapped between like 3 Mons the entirety of the match. He just would wish pass into the Klefki every single time. And the people above him, they really just, they had harder weeks, honestly. I mean, maybe I should have put AZ below Susie, but I just feel like Susie didn't have to try it all, and AZ had to at least think in his match. Um, it's just thinking gets you better at the game, and you getting better at the game is going to help you out in the future. So I feel like AZ really having to think about it is going to help him better off. But I mean, Susie, good on you for picking up the 6-0. It's just I would have liked to see the 6-0 come from a different fashion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't fault him too much for not having to think about the 6-0 because if we're going to look retrospectively, AZ didn't really need to think too much when he fought Demaster either. So it's kind of comparable in that sense. Also, Susie has a better record than AZ right now by 1 win. So I felt like just because of that, Susie deserved to be a little bit higher. But yeah, I decided to put AZ at number 5 above the other coaches because I felt like his loss was probably arguably closer, even though it was a 5-0 than the above coaches, just because he had that chance to win off of like just a small roll, and he did get lucked a fair bit throughout middle to end game, so it definitely affected the outcome a lot there too. The other coaches below him, being Ian and TJ, did lose as well, but they were just like lost because they were outplayed, not because they got lucked in any way. So even though he did get lost by a bigger margin, I still decided to put him a bit higher than the others. But I did place Susie above him because he does have the 3-1 record as opposed to the 2-2 record. Susie did win with stall and he didn't have to try, admittedly, but I don't think that's enough of a fault to place him lower for that.
All right. So yeah, I have AZ here, and like I was saying, he did get kind of destroyed, but like you said, it was on a roll, so he was kind of in a way there for to win it, and just Susie didn't have to think at all. But yeah, I think that taking a 5-0 is pretty bad if you look at it. But considering Keister, who honestly hasn't been doing terrible this season, he's like he got 6-0 the previous week, but still he was playing one of the top teams. So I
Yeah.
can't really fault him for that. And AZ's got a very, very powerful team synergistically. It's one of the best synergizing teams in the league. So I can definitely see him picking up fair amount of wins and making a nice little playoff run.
Yeah, for sure. And at number 3, we have a difference of opinion here. I've got you and you've got me. No bias here whatsoever, trust me. But we're the two 3-1 teams aside from Susie, and yeah, we've probably just been playing a bit better than Susie, playing better opponents. So why don't you talk about why you put me at number 3?
All right, so I put you at number 3. Just because I feel like the loss that you had, um, well, like we have very, very identical seasons right now because both losses that we had, they were both 1-0s that came down to the absolute wire. So it's really hard to differentiate between the two, but I don't know. I like D-Dance Zard, and it was pretty nice, you know? I don't
Fair
really
enough.
know.
Yeah.
We could just, like, swap between the two. It really doesn't matter. We've had pretty
Yeah,
much
once again.
identical seasons up until this point. Your differential's 2 higher than me, so I mean that's a point for why you put yourself over myself. But, yeah, it's pretty indifferent at this point.
Yeah, so I put you down here because I felt like your loss was a lower quality loss. It was also down to the wire, but it was against a comparatively worse coach than Ian in Shadow. And it was also far less hacksy or matchup dependent. The only real notable hacks was a sleep talk roll killing your fortress. Other than that, it was pretty much hacks free. In fact, you were very much lucking him with a lot of crits. So I felt like your loss was a lower quality loss overall. And outside of that, your wins have been pretty much same quality as mine. Your prep's been really phenomenal overall. Dragon Dance, Charizard Y is just amazing. You've had a lot of great wins this season, so you still definitely deserve the 3rd spot. But I did decide to place myself a bit higher up just because I felt like my loss was a lot better than your loss, and that's kind of all I have to go on in this instance.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, it's pretty indifferent. We could just swap between the two. It's really not going to matter. Um, Maybe I would swap it just because you have a higher differential, but we'll see in I think I play you in week 6. Yeah, I play you in week
That sounds
6.
about right.
So we'll see
We'll
who's
see
going
then.
to be rocking that number 2 spot.
Yeah, we have a we have a back and forth record right now. I believe I beat you last season, but you beat me in the playoffs.
Yep.
Heartbreaking HP Fire game, but regardless, next up we have Cody, and Cody's the only undefeated team, so obviously he gets to get this spot. Like I've said last week and the week before, I'm not sure if Cody will be able to keep this up. He hasn't been playing as high quality opponents as other teams have, arguably. He beat, who was it that he beat this week? He beat TCP, which is in theory impressive, but he's 11th coach right now, so not as impressive as it would initially seem. So his losses have, his wins, sorry, have all been on coaches that we would probably consider a bit lower. So once again, it'll be interesting to see how he fares against the top coaches. But with that being said, the Power Rankings team definitely said that about me last season too. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Cody. I know you're a fantastic coach. I praised it for a while, but I don't think there's any way that you go undefeated. I don't think it's happening. I think you're going to hold the best record again. I don't even think Cody's going to get away with 1 win or 1 loss only. Um, yes, his team is very good. He structured it honestly pretty nicely, and Cody plays and preps phenomenally. I just feel like his team is absolutely demolished by breakers. And yes, he did play good this week, and there's no reason to bring him down because he has 0 losses. And he's played honestly pretty decent coaches. He played Susie, who's 3-1, TCP, who's the reigning champion. He has some other nice wins. He's got a nice win against TJ. The Master is niche, but yeah, he's been playing really well. He's got a couple of reliable, or however you want to say it, wins under his belt. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. So go ahead and take us out.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching our week 4 power rankings. I'm pretty sure Gran will be back next week, so it'll be a shame to see it go. But Hutch will be back whenever either Gran or I need a break, so don't think you'll be missing out on his voice, and you'll also be able to check out him in weekly recaps and in his channel, which will be linked down below. So anyway, see you guys next time.
All right, see you guys.